in a recording. So please go to D2L, look at the recording if you want to see step by step exactly how do you do this camel thing. But it's not too tricky, but I will go and look at the highlights of it. So the highlights of it, I think, are that you would notice that you have to, or you should, have to is a big, strong word, right? And actually somebody's going to say that you don't have to. You should put, because yeah, your browser, you might get away with it. But just to make sure it works in all browsers, put the symbol there like that, the less than sign, exclamation mark, doc type, and HTML. Then your HTML, so how I did this is then first I made the HTML tag, and then I saved the file save, as an HTML file. So you need to make sure that you do that. When you do the save as, you've got a chance there to say the name of the file, make sure that the extension is HTML, then make sure that the type is HTML. The default type that'll come up will be a text type. So you'll have to push the arrow down and then choose from the list. And you see I've got it up there now. That's the HTML type. So do that, make sure it's HTML. Now, what have we got? Okay, so inside the document itself, we have a head. You'll see that in the instructions it says put a head, put a body. All right, and then in the head you put a title, and then you had a comment. This thing here in green is a comment. How it works as a comment is less than exclamation, just like in the doc type, but then with 2 dashes. And then at the end, 2 more dashes and a greater than, and all that green stuff is just text. You can put whatever you want there. It will not be processed by the browser. Anybody looking at the web page on the internet will not see this. Okay, that's just for the developers. So so you put that there as kind of like information notes for yourself if you're the only person that's going to be working on this. Or for if somebody else is going to be supporting it later for them. Okay, so I got a big note here from one student. I was trying to write like these codes in Visual Studio, but there's not color for words. I guess, yes. If there's not color for words, maybe it's because you didn't save it. You have to make sure that you save it as, and make sure that the file extension is HTML. So whatever goes after, in front of the dot is okay as long as you're not putting spaces and stuff. Don't put spaces in it. Now you're going to say, yeah, you can leave spaces in because in Windows you're allowed to have spaces. Yes, but you might be, this might end up on a Linux server because HTML works across all the platforms, right? That's how it powers the internet. It's so awesome, right? And so you can it runs on Mac, it runs on Linux, it runs on on Windows. And so because of that, you have to work to the lowest common denominator, and a Unix server might not be able to use your file name that's got spaces in it. So don't put spaces in the file name, but a dot, and must have HTML at the end and must be as type HTML. If you do that, when you save it, then you should get the colors up. So that was an excellent question, and I expect other people would have had that problem. So that's good. Thank you for that question. That was good. What other tricky stuff have we got in there? So once we got the colors up, we know we saved it as an HTML document. They go in pairs. The header, now you got 2 things happening in this bit of code that I'm looking at right now. The 2 things are we got header and we got heading 1. Oh, and we got head up here, right? So I did mention these in previous lecture, but there's quite a big difference between a head, a header, and a head. A header and a heading. So head is found not inside the body. What happens in the head is instructions for the browser, how to work with the web page. And so that's why we put the title in there. By the way, when we run this web page, you would see that the Mark's template would come up in the browser as in the tab of the browser. Okay, so that's just instructions. One of the instructions could be meta tags. Meta tags, for example, telling you what character set you should use to get your fonts and your numbers and letters and things like that. So this one is saying UTF, Universal TF. I'm not sure what that is, but You could Google it and find out for sure. Then we've got header and headings, right? So the header, that's just a developer defined term, which is kind of goes with footer. So we have header and footer just to indicate that the header is going to be at the top of the page and the footer is going to be at the bottom of the page. And we put the rest of the page in this thing that we call the main, which is also defined by the user. And so therefore it didn't have to be there. You could have a page without these things, but we define them, and just to organize our page so that it's more logical for us. It's not necessary, but it probably is a good thing to have. So the header here means that every time we have a web page on this website, we'd put a header there, and that would be the stuff that would be at the top of the page, and probably would style it the same and maybe even have the same words. Now that's quite different than the H1. H1 means heading type 1, which is going to be big heading. All right, then we've got a nav element, and in the nav element, what we've got is we've got some words: home, directions, and contact us, and each of those has got in between them ampersand MBSP, and that's a long way of saying for HTML for saying give me a space. And you might say, well, why don't I just hit the space bar? That'll give a space. Yeah, in Word it will, but it won't in HTML. If you want a space between things, besides your normal, HTML picks up these spaces, okay? But what if you wanted, just between words? But what if you wanted more spaces, like 2 spaces between the word or 3 spaces between the word, like we want here? We want 3 spaces between the word. To do that, you're going to have to do the ampersand NBSP. That'll add an extra space. Seems like a long way of doing it, but that's what works. And you'll see when we look at this page, you'll see how that works. Now the next thing that's really kind of cool. Okay, well, we got our paragraph tag. That's fine. That's just separates one paragraph from another. But we've got this thing called a list. Now we've got an ordered list and we got an unordered list. And I'll show you both today, I think, just because. All right, so at the moment we've got this as a UL, which stands for unordered list. Unordered list is going to have dots in it. Now, I'm telling you it's having dots in it because we haven't styled it. That's the default. We could go into the head and put some style tags, and we could say for the list items, we could make the dots into some special thing like a diamond or something, or even a little image. And you would have seen that on some web pages, they're quite sort of intricate. We could do all that with this thing called CSS. CSS is programming for making it look kind of fancy. All right, so I'm going to show you what does this page look like, and how do we show what it looks like is we just find the page. There it is, Doha Camel, and we just double click on it, which launches it in our browser, right? And actually, if you look at the icon that's beside the name of the file, you'll see that that it's defaulting to the Firefox browser. That's just because that's the way I set up my computer to default to Firefox. I don't know, nothing against Google. Oh yeah, just why not? I found it was faster in some situations. Now, there we can see some of the features of that page. The Doha Camel Adventures is in large bolded type because it's H1. That's the effect of the H1. Do you see between home and directions, there's more than one space. There's actually 3 spaces. That's the effect of the ampersand MBSP, all right, to give the spaces. And here is our unordered list. Unordered list just has dots. UL stands for unordered list. And then here we've got something else kind of special, which is this copyright symbol. Didn't look at that yet, did we? So let's have a quick look at the copyright. How we did that is we've got a bunch of special symbols that we can insert into our documents, and you can Google these, special symbols, whatever. And one of them is copy. There's other ones like registered trademark, etc. And so @copy gives you this special little C for copyright. And there's a lot of others. As I said, I'm not going to show you them all, but just to let you know that they're there. And okay, so let's change this. I'm going to change this because maybe I want these to be numbered. So instead of an unordered list, I'm going to have an ordered list. So I'm just going to change the U to an O. So that's the difference between an ordered list and an unordered list. Now I'll have to save this. Control S will do that. So I saved it there. And then when I refresh the page, the numbers come up. And so that's your difference between an ordered list and an unordered list. Now, with the ordered list, you can do some tricky stuff too. You could, I don't have to have ordered list with numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could have I, double IV, you know, that kind of stuff. You could have Roman numerals. You do A, B, C, D, E. And that you would do with some styling in the head as well. Then you got footer, and that's it. I mean, that is it. And again, I'll say, go back and have a look at the video I made yesterday on how to do this. I don't want to talk about this forever, so I'm going to stop talking about it now. Maybe record this. Quite important that you upload the compressed file, which inside there is your HTML file. Why is it important? Because D2L, this is a special thing about the learning management system that we use at the college, right? So when you go and work, might be a little different because you won't be working at the college. Well, some of you might. But supposing you go somewhere else, then it's okay. I am going to answer, right? Somebody's asking me, can we use some other way of compressing? Yes, because I went and I spent money. Poor teachers spending their own money, you know. Anyways, that's another story. But I have bought for myself a WinZip program, which which makes it possible for me to uncompress files of all different types. And I did that because students keep sending me all these RAR files. I had to buy WinZip to make it work, but I have. So, you know, don't feel bad about it. You know, that was students in a previous semester. Yes, so I don't care what you do. I am totally ready to take your compressed file and uncompress it. But it must be compressed, all right? Now, I was trying to explain the reason why. It must be compressed because D2L, somehow the programming in D2L, I think, is identifying CSS as a program code, and it strips program code when it's coming raw into D2L. It strips it out, and that's protection against hacking. Okay, so you can't just go and put a whole lot of, you can't just inject a whole lot of JavaScript code or a whole lot of Java code or a whole lot of Python code into D2L. It won't take it. So, but you can upload programs in Java, Python, etc., but only if you compress them into a folder first. All right, and so that's it. I'm pretty sure that that's a little security feature of D2L, which might show up in other places. Yeah. So, in other words, there is inside HTML files possibility of having little program code, and that could be a weakness for anything like a learning management system, which is uploading those raw files. So it's not going to, it'll let you upload the raw files, but it has an algorithm in it that whenever that raw file inside it is detected, anything that might be a little bit of programming code, it strips it out. And so that's bad for you because most of the work that you're going to be doing when you start making websites is going to be writing the code that makes the page look right. And that's all CSS. If you start uploading those files raw up to D2L, it's going to pull it all out and all your work's going to be gone. And your teacher won't be able to see it. So, okay, have I convinced you? I hope I've convinced you. Please compress all your files, all right? Compress all your files so that I get to see everything that you've done so that it doesn't come to me with half of it gone because D2L stripped it out. Okay, so yeah, that's a very good question. Maybe there's some other. So I do want you to put your name in the files. You could do it in the title. All right, that would be really awesome. But you can also do it in a comment like this. Comments will not mess up your the look of things on the screen. I mean, comments are just like they're not even there in terms of what it looks like on the screen. So that's just a note to you or whoever's looking at the code, the programmer, on information to help them understand what's going on. So from point of view of a teacher, what I need to understand is who did it. Yeah, so yes, please put your name in the files. You can also put them in the file name when you save the file, right? So when you go to File, Save As, You know, you could put your name here, right? Doha Camel by Mark or Doha Camel by, you know, whoever. Does that make sense? By Carlos. Doha Camel by Carlos, right there, like that. Yeah, and you don't need by, but you get the idea. Student ID is also good, right? You do both. Okay, I hope that helps.